Hell yes. I want to talk to you today about something that's been bugging me more and more, and that is the increasing dependency on alt-right pundits within alternative media. Now, as you know, I very publicly and openly supported, what's his name, Donald Trump. And the reason why I did it was to make sure that Hillary Clinton didn't get in power. It was purely a gamble. It was not a philosophical announcement on my behalf. It was not a political advice on my behalf. It was purely a form of a form of gambling. Literally, if you think of that song from the early 80s by that went, "You gotta know when to hold 'em, know when to roll 'em, know when to walk away, know when to run. You got to count your money. When you're sitting at the table, there'll be time enough for counting when the dealing's done," by Kenny Rogers. Now that seems like a very silly song, but the metaphors in that are tremendous. They're absolutely tremendous metaphors. And that's the only reason that I gave my support to Trump. It was to make sure that lunatic Clinton did not get anywhere near the nukes. And we successfully achieved that. And that's why so many people involved in occultism and magic and shamans and so on, all around the world, were actually, the whole Keck thing as well, was to get Trump in power, to stop her from getting in power. But that's not the same thing as supporting the alt-right thing. That was a diplomatic, shall we say, choice that had to be made in the heat of the moment, in the nature of the times as they were. Now, since then, this has led to a growth of the alt-right pundit in alt media, and I'm not happy about what I see. With the exception of Milo Yiannopoulos, I really don't have any time for anyone in the alt-right punditry. I like him because he reminds me of someone like Quentin Crisp. It's the nearest thing to it. And even if I agree with the alt-right pundits' statements, I don't want to be an alt-right person. I don't want to be around them. My thing is that I always judge a person by if I want to go for a pint with them. That's what I always judge them by. And I don't see any of these people, with the exception of Milo Yiannopoulos, that I'd want to go for a pint with. The reason for this is because I don't like them as people. I think a lot of them are smug and shouty. I think at the end of the day, for all their pontifications, they're just a bunch of nerdy white boys who got lucky and found that they could exploit the gap between Rush Limbaugh and whoever the Council on Foreign Relations is planning to replace him with next. That's all they are. Now, even if you agree with some of the points they say, and I do agree with some of the points they say, it's the whole thing, just because you like the band doesn't mean you have to allow them to call all the tunes. You can go home and listen to the music of your own. And this is why I will never be involved with the right wing. I despise right-wing politics as much as I despise left-wing politics. I consider myself an anarcho-capitalist. I'm for small, free, independent business people. I think if there's any government regulations, it should be on big corporations. Unfortunately, we live the opposite way around now. It's not because I don't, not liking someone as a person is not reason enough to make a video. That I don't do things like that. It's purely, I will always criticize a person on substance and on what they can bring to the world as people, both from a creative or even an ideas point of view. I'm not seeing any good ideas for starters, other than things that already make common sense. Islamic radicalism has to be brought to an end. I agree with that and all that, and so on. There's, foreign policy of the United States is not the best thing in the world. I agree with all that. That's all fair and good. What I don't like is this sort of thing where they're all slipping towards Christianity. Let me tell you, I find Christianity just as repulsive and repugnant as Islam. I'm against all religions that are evangelical and want to convert me either through coercion or violence. And both Christianity and Islam are identical of one another in that respect. And don't give me this thing of Christianity doesn't kill people to convert them. Read up the history of the Crusades, for Christ's sake. Or read up on what was done to the Samis who were drowned because they wouldn't convert in Norway by Christian monks. This is the story. This is what Christianity and Islam in. They are evangelical religions, and there's a big thing in this alt-right punditry to kind of move towards that. But the main reason, there's two main reasons I would tell people to be very wary of the alt-right thing. The first thing is that many of these pundits, first of all, they don't have any production quality. They're just like what I'm doing here right now. They're standing in front of a camera and telling you what you already know, and then asking you for donations. This is begging and panhandling. That's the end of that. Now, they're not all like that, but a lot of them are. I do this as well. Here I am right now doing it, but I have monetized my videos, which I'll talk to another point in a second. And I also sell books. I sell books that you can read, such as The Anvil of the Psyche, a book that I made very direct and easy and inexpensive so anyone could afford it. I make on this about 25 cents for every copy I sell. I kept the price down for the deliberate reason that I wanted the information contained within this book out there. No other reason. I make money from other things I can, and so on. But that's one part of it. Another part of it is that they've built up a large following from within what we say traditional conspiracy movement. So you have people who would be inclined towards conspiracy theory. And all of a sudden, a lot of these types that have groomed this audience are now telling them there's no conspiracy. Of course there's conspiracies. Just because the alt-right has gained some power doesn't mean that government wicked and evil conspiracies have stopped, or there never was any to begin with. I've seen some of them actually say there's absolutely nothing dodgy about 9/11. I don't know what the official story of 9/11 is. I'm not intelligent or clever enough to know it went on, but I also know that what happened during 9/11 is as dodgy as fuck. As dodgy as fuck. Okay, so don't be, just because you've gained a right-wing audience, an alt-right audience, and you've groomed all these people into conspiracy into that, and then you start telling them, oh, I don't see anything unusual or strange that happened on 9/11. Be wary, okay? Be very wary. Another one is, and I'm finding this one very interesting, is that all of a sudden these alt-right pundits have all done the same thing, and they're telling you to cancel your YouTube accounts. What? No, they're telling you that YouTube has changed its terms of service, and they're going to crack down on anyone who has an alternative opinion that conflicts with the interests or requirements of the corporate advertisers. Now, just think about that for a second. They're telling you to shut down your YouTube channel and go to a platform that isn't monetized and will have 1%, if even that, of the audience and reach that YouTube has, just because all these alt-right people, are they working from a central locations operation unit, have suddenly decided that you should take down your YouTube channel because you might be censored. This is like saying that, this is like the one person who, they're not that big, by the way. They love to big themselves up, and they are big relatively to what they were a few years ago, but they're not that big compared to the major operations. They're still the same level as somebody writing a letter to the BBC complaining that they were offended by a character on an episode of Doctor Who, when Doctor Who still gets 25 million live views in just the first broadcast, not counting all the other views, DVDs, and everything else around the world it gets after that. So remember, keep that in perspective. Are you going to really delete your YouTube channel because someone who represents 1% of the viewing audience is telling you, if we all do this, we'll really frighten Google? Come on now. You've got to be very careful. There's something going on here. If you see points of common sense within alt-right thinking or alt-right videos that appeal to you, that's it. That's enough. Walk away. You don't have to sign up to it. You don't have to make it a lifestyle. Remember, we're playing a game of gambling here. We're playing a game of poker, and we will hold cards at certain times that we won't hold at others. This is how you survive in this life. You never join any teams. What you do is you You follow the flow, and you never have any gurus. That's really awful to have gurus. What you have are mentors. I have lots of mentors, and never trust anyone who has no mentors and see themselves as the supreme voice of everything. This is a very important thing. Take what you can from it and then run. Don't hang around. Don't wait to crap out or be bankrupted because you've stayed too long in the game. Everything is a game. Life is a game, and dogmatism is what destroys you. Signing up for anything like that is what destroys you. I do not personally like a lot of these alt-right pundits, because there's something unreal about all of them. If they're not kind of robotic and shouty, there's an element of a performance. And if there's not an element of performance, there's a smugness there. A smugness I find very distasteful and off-putting. You just think, would you want to go for a pint with a person like that? Just because they say something you agree with, do you want to go for a pint with them? And could they suddenly change their opinions and make videos about different subjects, as say left-wing stuff came suddenly into vogue again as the kind of alternative? Remember, alternative also spells out alternative, and you're constantly being altered. Again, animal of the psyche, that shows you that you can't be altered, the native that can't be altered anymore by the alternative. You've got to always be on your guard. Always. Now, am I saying any of these guys are horrible human beings? No, I'm sure most of them are probably okay. But I don't feel comfortable with what they're saying and what they're expressing. And you shouldn't either. You should not sign up. Telling you getting you to join their team and to become their subscriber base, and then suddenly announcing there's no such thing as conspiracies. Well, that should be a major red flag for you. And secondly, telling you that you should cancel your YouTube channel just because you can send a message to Google. So you lose everything. You lose one more voice. You lose all your videos, and you end up on a platform that no one watches. What is the good of that? There's no good of that. It only serves the people telling you, two entities, the one telling you to do it because it makes their subscriber base bigger, and secondly, it's also helping the so-called corporations that are claiming to damage. Don't lose your voice. Don't cancel your YouTube channel just because someone who's bigged themselves up because they've got, the same amount of subscribers as some guy who does videos on makeup or something has. Doesn't mean you're suddenly changing and ruling the world. Keep your perspective. I know that I'm a pissant in all this. I'm nothing. However, I can influence and mentor maybe a few people, but that's all I want from them. Of course, I sell books and I create art, and I do want to make a living from that. But that's just part of the process. I would do this even if I didn't. I was making these videos long before I had a book out, and I'll make them long before I'll have nothing out. As long as YouTube is here. Another thing with the idea of monetization and going to Patreon is, first of all, yes, it's begging and panhandling. That's why I don't like it for one reason. All that stuff, GoFundMe, Patreon donations, that's all begging. As soon as they start asking for money just for standing in front of a camera like this, get out of the game. Secondly, the logic being that if YouTube starts pushing fellas like me and others like me down the search engine, we will lose our monetization. Hold on a second, there's other ways to promote your video. There's Facebook, there's Twitter, there's Google Plus. There's lots of ways you can get out there and promote your video. You don't have to wait for the Google or YouTube search engine to find to bring you up to the top to be seen. There's lots of ways you can promote yourself. And secondly, if you're dependent on things like Patreon and donations, all it takes, and I speak from experience, is one or two loonies or some cult to take something you said or did in the past completely out of context, and these hysterical moral majority types that are swayed by this stuff will overnight stop giving you your Patreon. But if you still have, you still have a YouTube account and you're still making videos and you still have advertising revenue, you'll still have something coming in. You won't be completely wiped out. You'll always be there anyway for posterity. After you die and everything, your message continues on. So be very wary of this, and be very wary of all these alt-right pundits who are now starting to suddenly appear on major talk shows, on mainstream media. Again, nothing wrong with that, but I just find it interesting that they all seem to have the same agendas at the same time, and they all start hitting mainstream radio and TV at the same time. Just be wary, and don't let anyone tell you what to do or think. Your YouTube channel is your own business. Who you vote for or not vote for is your own business. And like I said, just like Kenny Rogers says, know when to walk away and know when to run. And that includes me too.